So tell me about Jim. I mean, you just peel the bark off of this guy in this about Jim.
Substack. So
is the
Copper's marketing, and I kept getting your emails. I'm like, why am I not on Substack? So over the holidays, that's when I went over to Substack. Ended Europe.
So tell me about Jim. I mean, you just peel the bark off of this guy in this piece. It's titled "Jim Jordan shouldn't be the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. He should be a defendant in a criminal trial for his role in attempting to overturn the 2020 election." Why?
It's that simple, Tom. Why? We all know. Everyone listening to your show is smart. They know the why of all this. Look, Jim, first of all, Republicans picked 11 of the 17 House committees are election deniers. But Jim Jordan is far more than an election denier. He didn't just vote not to certify the results. He was an active part of the conspiracy to defraud the United States and the conspiracy to obstruct Congress. And those are two of the 4 crimes the January 6th committee has referred to the Department of Justice to prosecute Donald Trump. What I mean by that, Tom, is the January 6th committee, people go look, it's like page 140. You want to check it out, it's free online. You can read that page, those pages of the report. Jim Jordan is laid out as a significant player in the effort to overturn the election. That's the language of the January 6th committee. This guy not only traveled to other states to spew lies about the election, he was involved in the planning. He was involved in a conference call on January 2nd, just days before the attack, laid out in the January 6th report, with members of Congress and Trump on how to stop the January 6th certification. He then had a phone call with Trump afterwards, one-on-one for 18 minutes. Days later, he's doing more, texting Mark Meadows and speaking to members of Congress. So January 6th committee talks about trying to delay or overturn the election results. In no other country does this guy walk free. I mean, Israel Trump walks free. This is a man who is a co-conspirator in 2 of the 4 crimes the January 6th committee has laid out. There's no doubt. I said, as a lawyer, he's done everything for conspiracy. They've agreed on a goal that was illegal, overturn the election, and he took overt acts in furtherance of that illegal goal. That's the definition of a criminal conspiracy. It is an injustice that Merrick Garland has not even examined people like Jim Jordan. I have to say that. And that's why Jim Jordan should literally be a defendant right now with Donald Trump in a criminal conspiracy trial. Again, Donald Trump isn't charged for anything, and we're 2 years, 11 days since January 6th, because I count it every day.
Yeah, we're talking with Dean Obeidallah. Dean, why do you think it is that Garland has not put Jim Jordan in front of a grand jury?
Well, if he's a target, he won't, technically, if he's truly a target. But why is Merrick Garland waited 2 years and 11 days and we still don't have any charges? Why did he wait almost 2 years from January 6th to appoint a special counsel? He got sworn in March of 2021, but he knew as soon as he got sworn in, Merrick Garland, Donald Trump is going to run again in 2024. He understood the political dynamic. At that point, I was actually calling for him for a special counsel then, because everything you read about Merrick Garland, he's an institutionalist. And the last thing he wants to do is charge a former president. And I get that. And I actually respect that. And the choice at the time, a year and a half ago, would have been pick then a special counsel. Now we'd have charges and Trump's trial would be coming up. So, Merrick Garland, he's got his Federalist buddies. I mean, there's no disputing that. He is a moderate. He's an institutionalist, whatever you want to say. He doesn't have what it takes to hold a former president accountable. It's never happened before in American history. And Merrick Garland's just not that person who's going to do it. And that's why a different time, Merrick Garland would have been a great AG. Just the wrong time for him. He's not a bad person. I don't hate the guy. Just the wrong AG at this time.
Yeah, it seems to me sometimes that, Democrats are just bringing a knife to a gunfight. They're bringing a ping pong paddle. I just, it just blows my mind. But, as an attorney, what could be done outside of Merrick Garland? I mean, it's you always hear about, lawsuits being launched by people. I mean, couldn't any American sue Jim Jordan for participating in a conspiracy to deprive us of our democracy?
I think you have a great case under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which could ban him from the ballot going forward. And that's not a pipe dream. I wrote about it for MSNBC. I write for everywhere now at this point. Whatever lets me write. I wrote an article a few months ago when in New Mexico, a judge there did a great analysis of someone who went on January 6th, was part of the attack, was convicted of a crime, and he was an elected official, a Republican. And after like a 3-day trial, having historians on testify what insurrection meant under the 14th Amendment, Section 3, to ban someone, found this person had violated that. and remove them from office and ban them from ever being on the ballot again. And that's being appealed. But that case is a great template. And I think people in Ohio, especially in Jim Jordan's district, should talk to people there. You're going to find organizations. In fact, that organization, and I think Free Speech are the ones that brought the lawsuit. They're looking forward to this. They did it against Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's important.
They failed, though, when they did it against Marjorie Taylor Greene.
But Jim Jordan was a member of Congress at the time. The Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is you've got a member of Congress or the government at the time of your actions to support an insurrection. Marjorie Taylor Greene was not sworn until January 3rd of 2021. So she was only a member of government for 3 days. How much of a role did she really play? Jim Jordan was a longtime member of Congress. What the January 6th committee lays out, he was a repeated and regular part of the conspiracy to overturn our election. If this Section 3, 14th Amendment applies to anyone, it applies to Donald Trump and it applies to Jim Jordan. Maybe some others, but certainly Jim Jordan, it should. And I hope in Ohio, somebody sues him and let him go defend himself in court. Let him have to testify under oath to defend himself the way Marjorie Taylor Greene did.
You know, if he was a Democrat, there would be 16 right-wing Republican billionaires lined up ready to fund that lawsuit and take it all the way to the Supreme Court and everything else. It's
Tom, imagine a Democratic president did exactly what Donald Trump did after January 6th. Does anyone think we'd be 2 years and 11 days later and a Republican attorney general would have not charged that Democratic president? If he had not charged that Democratic former president, Republicans would have driven him out of office. Fox News would have driven him out of office. Instead, we have Democrats who want to let the process play out, and I'm for that. I get it's not an episode of Law and Order, but folks, we're 2 years and 11 days from January 6th. They could have put their resources in and charged Trump within a year and a half. You could have made the case by then. There's no doubt about it. And I've talked to former federal prosecutors who've told me that very thing. So I defer to them. They're former federal prosecutors. I was never a former federal prosecutor. The case could have been made by now. Merrick Garland just did not make it a priority until really Cassidy Hutchinson testified last summer. That, the reporting shows, that really made the investigation get stepped up in DOJ. And that's a failure by DOJ, by Merrick Garland, not the good.
No, I'm with you. We're talking with Dean Obeidallah, my colleague and buddy with right here on Sirius XM, channel 127 Progress. He's on the air every night, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't caught his show, be sure to do so. Dean, give us an overview of the spectrum of complicity, criminal and otherwise, between people like Jim Jordan, who was actively involved in planning January 6th, or you're asserting that, I believe, and interacting with Donald Trump, through that period of time, versus, some random congressperson who didn't, was not in on the whole thing, like Tuberville and all these other guys, but did vote to say, no, we're not going to certify Joe Biden. I mean, that's the spectrum. Where on that spectrum do different levels of liability occur, and where might people be vulnerable on that spectrum?
For someone who simply voted not to certify the election results, and they did that after the actual violent attack, I can't see any criminality.
Right.
Or even if they made a few statements about, I think there's fraud or there's irregularities, I don't see any criminality. You have to have, for a conspiracy, overt actions in furtherance of the criminal goal. Certainly, Jim Jordan. I mean, I think that arguably there's a good faith basis to criminally investigate this guy, and I wish DOJ would do that. Some of the others, Scott Perry referring some congressman referring, I think it was John Eastman or others with some theories. It might not be enough because you have to really be actively involved. From the January 6th report, I'm telling you, I don't think there's anyone who was a member of Congress as involved. Apart from Congress, you have Mark Meadows. His fingerprints are everywhere. You have John Eastman, who should be charged by now. Rudy Giuliani. You have others of that ilk and that circle certainly should be charged. Of members of Congress, Jim Jordan really stands out. And to remind people, Jim Jordan refused to testify in response to the January 6th committee's subpoena. And the January 6th committee, they closed it in their investigation, referring to the ethics committee, which now the Republicans have gutted. They also referred Kevin McCarthy. To remind people, Kevin McCarthy, while not involved in the planning of January 6th, there's no evidence of that, he blew off the January 6th committee subpoena as well. So I hope in the House Judiciary Committee, where he is chair, Jim Jordan, that people treat his subpoenas the same way he treated the January 6th committee subpoena and blow it off and let them go to court. And I'm not recommending the average person, you should listen to a subpoena. But for some people who have the wherewithal, maybe they can treat Jim Jordan the way he treated.
But there have been people who've gone to prison for defying congressional subpoenas.
Yeah, It's Steve Bannon, who was convicted of that, and he's out, helping a coup in Brazil. We're looking Brazil opened up a formal investigation into Bolsonaro within 8 or 9 days afterward. The Supreme Court approved that. And they arrested 1,200 people within a matter of days, including government officials, suspending them. The message sent from that, Tom, is if you attempt a coup and end our democracy, we're going to take it really serious. We're going to charge you, investigate you, freeze your assets, what they want to do to Bolsonaro now. Trump, what's the message? 2 years and 11 days later, not one charge, nothing.
Yeah.
That message is either what Trump did wasn't a crime or what he did wasn't that big of a deal. And I think in both cases that's false. It was a crime. I think it's January 6th committee lays out 4 crimes. Donald Trump should be charged. And Merrick Garland, he has failed us in this regard. In other areas, he might be doing a good job. In this area, he's failed us.
Yeah, I'm with you. The great Dean Obeidallah, Sirius XM 6 to 9, deanobeidallah.substack.com and deanofradio.com. Find all about all. You're welcome, Dean. Thanks so much for dropping by. Great having you with us.